Hey everyone, my name is Anne and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to show you guys how to crochet this really easy striped sweater dress. I will be making a small in this video, but there also includes sizes X small to 3X large in this tutorial and also in the written pattern that I have linked in the description box. But here are the supplies you'll be needing for this project. So we're going to begin this pattern working the bottom border. I have my main color and my 5.5mm hook, and I'm going to first make a slip knot, and you can do this any way you would like. After this slip knot, we're going to make a chain of 15, and that chain of 15 is going to be for all sizes. And to make a chain, just yarn over and pull through. Again, yarn over and pull through. After you have your chain of 15, skipping this first chain and inserting our hook into this first stitch, we're going to begin row 1. So I'm going to insert my hook into the second chain, yarn over, pull through. Yarn over, pull through 2, and that's going to be our first single crochet. Again, into the next chain, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. And now you just want to work single crochets coming all the way down your chain until the end. After you have your single crochets, you want to chain 1 and turn your work, and that chain 1 does not count as our first stitch. So moving on to row 2, skip this first turning chain and inserting your hook into this first stitch, we're going to work back bar single crochets into each stitch across our row. To work a back bar single crochet, instead of inserting your hook into both of these loops, we're only going to insert your hook into this back bar or this back loop. Yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. Doing this back bar single crochet again, instead of going through both loops, you want to only go through this back loop, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. And now just continue working these back bar single crochets all the way down your row. So once you have made it to the end of your row, chain 1 and turn your work around. That chain 1 never counts as your first stitch. So to continue the pattern for your bottom border, you want to repeat row 2 with these back bar single crochets until you have a total of 47 rows. But this video contains sizes X small to 3X large, so the amount of rows you'll be making for each size is going to be indicated right on the side here. But since I am making a size small, I'm going to make a total of 47 rows. So I'm going to work up all of my rows, and then I will see you guys back for the next steps. So this is what my 47 rows for my bottom border is looking like. So from here, we're actually not going to cut and fasten off. We're going to move directly to working the front/back panel directly on top of our bottom border. So let's go ahead and get started on those steps. So now we're going to be moving on to working the front/back panel. I'm going to begin on the foundation row. So let's first chain 1, Now beginning into this first row over here, we're going to work 1 single crochet. So into this first row, work 1 single crochet, and then into this same row, we're going to work 1 double crochet. To work a double crochet, yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, and then pull through 2. Now skip the next row, and into the next row, we're going to work another single crochet and double crochet. So I'm going to skip this, into the next row, work that single crochet, into the same row, work a double crochet, skip a row, then work a single crochet, double crochet, skip the next row, then work again a single crochet and double crochet. Now repeat this stitch pattern by skipping a row, then work a single crochet, double crochet, all the way across until you have 2 rows at the end remaining. But I'm just going to do this one more time with you guys. So just skip the next row, and then once again work a single crochet, just like this, and then a double crochet. And this is what your stitch pattern should be looking like. So I'm just going to work all the way across, and then I will meet you guys back once I have reached the end. So I have just finished up working all the way down my row until I have 2 rows at the end remaining. So into these last 2 rows, we're going to skip the second to last row, and then into the last row, just work 1 single crochet, just like this, chain 1 and turn your work around. And as always, that chain 1 does not count as our first stitch. Moving on to our first row, it's pretty much the same thing as we did for our foundation row, just a little bit different. So we're going to skip this first chain, inserting our hook into this first stitch, work a single crochet and a double crochet. Then just skip the next stitch, work a single crochet and double crochet into the next one. And now just repeat this Suzette pattern, skipping a stitch and then single crochet, double crochet into each stitch all the way across your row until you have 2 stitches at the end remaining. So I am back here, and I have just finished working my Suzette stitch pattern until I have 2 stitches at the end of my row. So into these last 2 stitches, we're going to skip the second to last stitch, and then into the last stitch, we're actually going to change color. So to change color, skip the second to last stitch as I mentioned, and then into this last stitch, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop. I'm going to go ahead and cut my yarn, making sure to leave a long tail. Next, I'm going to grab my accent color. I'm going to yarn over with my accent color and then pull through both of these loops, just like this. And then with our brown color, yarn over, pull up a loop to make a chain, and then turn your work around. Moving on to row 2, into this first stitch, we're going to work a single crochet, double crochet, skip the next stitch, single crochet, double crochet, doing that regular Suzette stitch pattern that we were doing before until you have 2 stitches at the end remaining. So I'm going to go across my row, and then I will see you guys back once I have reached this point. Now once you have 2 stitches at the end of your row, skip the second to last stitch and then single crochet into this last stitch, chain 1 and turn your work around. So now to continue our pattern, you want to repeat this row, which is row 2 with our accent color, until you have a total of 6 rows. So I'm going to quickly work up a few more rows with this brown color, and then I'm going to see you guys back to change the color one more time. So I'll see you guys soon. So I have made it back here with my 6 rows. Now from here we're going to repeat row 1, and all row 1 was just beginning into this first stitch, work a single crochet, double crochet, skip a stitch, single crochet, double crochet, all the way across until you have 2 stitches remaining at the end, then skip the second to last stitch, and then into the last stitch change your color to the next color. So I'm going to do that Suzette stitch all the way across, and then I'm going to show you how to change color one more time. So I have now 2 stitches at the end of my row. As I said, skip a stitch, then change color into the last stitch. So yarn over, pull up a loop. You should have 2 loops on your hook. Now grab the next color, yarn over with your next color and pull through both of those loops. From here, chain 1 and turn your work around. Now to continue your pattern, you want to repeat row 2, which is just a regular row of that Suzette stitch pattern, until you have a total of 14 rows. So from row 8 to row 14. I'm going to work up those rows, and then I will see you guys back for the next steps. So I have made it back here, and I have 14 rows in total. Now to continue our front/back panel, this is really simple. You want to repeat row 1 through row 14 until you have a total of 65 rows. So for example, the next row, which is going to be row 15, you would work across your row and then change color into the last stitch. But I'm going to work up my 65 rows. Oh, and also the amount of rows you'll be making for each size will be indicated right on the side here. But I'm going to work up my 65 rows because I am making a size small, and then I will see you guys back to work on the shoulder straps. So this is what my work is looking like after 65 rows. So this is where we worked our bottom border, and then we alternated doing our accent color and then our main color until I had 65 rows. Now from here, we will not cut and fasten off. We're actually going to continue directly to the shoulder straps from here. So let's go ahead and move on with that section. So beginning on the shoulder straps, I already chained and turned my work. Now beginning into this first stitch, we're going to work our regular Suzette stitch pattern, except we're only going to go into 16 stitches across your row. So I have just worked into 16 stitches. Now skip the next stitch and then single crochet into this 18th stitch. Now you should have 17 stitches in total for your shoulder strap. From here, just go ahead, chain 1 and turn your work around. So beginning on row 2, into this first stitch, we're going to work our Suzette stitch pattern until the end of your row. And once you have reached the end of row 2, go ahead and chain 1 and turn your work around. Now moving on to row 3, we're actually going to be doing a decrease for this row. So beginning into this first stitch, work your regular stitch pattern, except you want to do that until you have 4 stitches at the end of your row. So I have made it back across my row until I have 4 stitches at the end remaining. We're going to skip 1 stitch and then single crochet into the next stitch. From here, chain 1 and turn your work around. So you should have left 2 stitches at the end completely unworked, and that's how we're going to be doing our decreases. So now to continue this side for our shoulder strap, you want to repeat row 2 and row 3, making sure to leave 2 stitches unworked every other row until you have a total of 7 rows. So I'm going to work up my 7 rows for my shoulder strap, and then I'm going to see you guys back when I am all done. So I have just made it back here with my 7 rows. We decreased by 2 stitches every other row. Now it kind of looks like we have little steps coming up our side. So once you have 7 rows, I'm going to go ahead, cut and fasten off. And then just pull the yarn through, just like this. And so now that we have 1 shoulder strap complete, we're going to move on to working the other shoulder strap on the opposite side. So let's go ahead and get started on that. So now moving on to our second shoulder strap, it is pretty much the same thing as we did on the other side, but just a little bit different. So I have here my main color yarn, and I'll just quickly make a slip knot. From here, we're going to insert our hook into the 13th stitch, starting from the first unworked, or starting from the first worked stitch. So what that is going to look like, I'm going to count 13 stitches. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then into this 13th stitch, insert your hook, just like this. And then yarn over, pull through everything for a slip stitch. Just yarning over, pull through everything to secure. Now beginning on row 1, just chain 1. Beginning into this first stitch, we're going to work our regular Suzette stitch pattern until the end, and you should have a total of 17 stitches, just as we did for the other side. Once you reach the end of your row, just chain 1 and turn your work around. Moving on to row 2, we're just going to work our regular Suzette stitch pattern until the end of your row, and then just chain 1 and turn your work around. Now moving on to row 3, we're going to do a decrease row, and it's kind of going to be a little bit different than what we did over here. So we're first going to slip stitch into 2 stitches across. So this is my first slip stitch, and then here is the second slip stitch. And then into the next stitch, work your single crochet and double crochet into that same stitch. Then just skip a stitch, single crochet, double crochet, working your regular stitch pattern until the end of your row. and then simply chain 1 and turn your work. Moving on to row 4, we're going to work our stitch pattern all the way across our row until we have 4 stitches at the end remaining. And once you have these 4 stitches at the end, just skip 1 stitch and then single crochet into the next stitch. So you should have left 2 stitches completely unworked, and that's how we're going to be working our decreases. So very similar to what we did on the other side, you want to repeat row 3 and row 4, making sure to do a decrease every other row until you have a total of 7 rows. So I'm going to quickly work up my 7 rows, and then I'm going to meet you guys back once I am all finished. So I have just finished working up my last 7 rows to my shoulder strap, and now I did cut and fasten off once I reached the end. So once we have both of our shoulder straps, that should complete your first panel, as you can see over here. And once you have one panel, you do want to repeat this one more time, which I have already done off camera. And now that we have both of our panels, we're going to move directly to seaming the panels together. So let's go ahead and get started on that. So moving on to seaming our bodices together, I have both of our panels and I have laid them good size facing each other. So to seam this up, I have a tapestry needle and some yarn, and we're going to be working the whip stitch. So to seam our panels, beginning into this very bottom corner, we're going to whip stitch all the way up the side until we have 7.5 inches from the top remaining, and that 7.5 inches from the top is going to leave room for our sleeves. But just to show you how to whip stitch, I'm going to take my hook, insert it into both of these stitches, and then just pull through. Once you have pulled through, insert your hook into the next 2 stitches, and then pull through again. Into the next 2 stitches, coming from the back and just pulling through again. Now just repeat doing this whip stitch all the way up your panel until again you have 7.5 inches remaining at the top. So I'm going to continue doing this, and then I will see you guys back once I have reached that point. So I have made it back here, and I went all the way up this side until I have these 7.5 inches for my armhole remaining. And then once you have seamed one side, of course you want to repeat this process on the opposite side as well, which I have already done over here. And then once you have both of your sides done, I already went ahead and then seamed my 2 shoulder straps, only going a few inches across, just like this. And now that we have everything, all of our bodice all seamed up, we're going to move directly on working the sleeves over here. So let's go ahead and get started on that. So now we're going to be moving on to the sleeves. I have set my bodice aside and now I have my hook in my main color yarn. I'm going to make a slip knot. From here we're going to begin the sleeves by making a chain of 45. So after you have made your chain, we're going to join our chain into the first chain that we just made. So I'm going to make sure that it is not twisted at all. And then I'm going to insert my hook into that first chain. And then slip stitch to secure. So just yarn over, pull through 2, and this should have formed a large loop for your armhole. From this point, chain 1 and turn your work around. So beginning on row 1, into the second chain, we're going to work a double crochet. Now skip the next chain, and into the next chain, work a single crochet and a double crochet. So that's my single crochet. And then into that same chain, work a double crochet. Skip the next chain, work a single crochet and double crochet. Now just simply repeat this stitch pattern, skipping a chain, single crochet, double crochet into each chain all the way around. So I have just finished coming all the way around my armhole with that Suzette stitch. And now to join this round, just slip stitch into this first stitch. Just like this, and then chain 1 and turn your work around. That chain 1 does not count as our first stitch. So moving on to round 2, skipping this turning chain and inserting our hook into this first stitch, we're going to work a double crochet. Now skip the next stitch and then work a single crochet and double crochet into this next stitch. Then skip the next stitch, work a single crochet and double crochet. Now just continue working this stitch pattern as you normally would into each stitch all the way around, and then I will see you guys back to join it one more time. So I have just finished working all the way around my row, and just as we did last time, slip stitch into this first stitch to join, chain 1, turn your work around, and now to continue this pattern you want to repeat this row, which is row 2, until you have a total of 8 rows. So I'm going to work up my 8 rows, and then I will see you guys back for the next steps. So I have made it back here with my 8 rows, and after we have our 8 rows of this Suzette stitch, we're going to begin on row 1, and we're going to do the same thing as we were doing before, except we have to change our color out for the accent color. And the only reason why we're starting on row 1 is just because it's easier for the different sizes for the sake of this video. But just getting started on row 1, I'm going to chain, turn my work around. Beginning into this first stitch, we'll work a double crochet. Skip the next stitch and then work a single crochet and double crochet into the next stitch. Skip the next stitch and then work a single crochet and double crochet. And now you just want to do this into each stitch all the way across, and then I'm going to show you how to change the color into that last stitch. And so I am back here and I have just finished working all the way around my row. And now into this first stitch, instead of doing a regular slip stitch, we're going to slip stitch and change our color. So I'm going to insert my hook into this first stitch. Then just yarn over with your new color. So I'm just going to yarn over and then pull through everything. With your new color, chain 1 and turn your work around. Now from row 2 to row 6 with our new color, we're going to work those same regular Suzette stitch rows that we were doing before. So just into this first stitch, work a double crochet, skip a stitch, single crochet, double crochet into the next stitch, skip a stitch, single crochet, double crochet into each stitch around. Slip stitch into that first stitch to join, chain and turn your work. So just repeat doing those rows from row 2 to row 6, and then I'm going to meet you guys back, and then I'm going to show you how to change color one more time. So I now have my 6 rows, and our next row, which is row 7, is going to be really simple. We're going to do a repeat row of row 1. So we're going to do our Suzette stitch into each stitch, and then I'm going to show you how to change color at the end. So I will meet you guys back really shortly. And so as you can see, I have just finished working around my row with that Suzette stitch. And now I have this first stitch that we're going to slip stitch into and change our color. So I'm just going to insert my hook into this first stitch, yarn over with my new color, just like this, and then pull straight through. Now we can just chain 1 and turn our work around. So to now continue the pattern for our sleeve, from row 8 through row 14, we're going to do our regular Suzette stitch rows, which is repeating row 2. And then once I have finished those 14 rows, I'm going to show you the next steps. So yeah, I'll see you guys back. So now this is what my work is looking like after those 14 rows. And now to continue the pattern for your sleeve, you want to repeat these last 14 rows until you have a total of 40. So I will work up my 48 rows, and then I will see you guys back once I am all done. So I have just finished working up my 48 rows for my sleeve, and this is what my work is looking like so far. Now we just have one more row left for our sleeve. We're going to do a decrease row. So beginning on this decrease row, I have already chained and turned my work around. And now beginning into this second stitch, we're going to do a half double crochet decrease. So I'm just going to yarn over, insert my hook, pull up a loop, into the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 4, doing this into each stitch all the way around my sleeve. So I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook into the stitch, pull up a loop, into the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 4, and now just work these half double crochet decreases coming all the way around. And then you just want to slip stitch into that first stitch to join and then cut and fasten off. And so I have just finished my sleeve. For row 49, we did those decreases. I cut, fastened off once I slip stitch into that first stitch. And now that we have our 49 rows for our sleeve, we're going to set this sleeve aside and we're going to move on to working the cuff. So let's go ahead and move on with that. So now we're going to be moving on to the cuff. I have my main color yarn. I will first make a slip knot, and then we're going to begin with a chain of 13. After you have your chain of 13, beginning on row 1, we're going to single crochet starting into the second chain into each chain across. Once you have made it to the end of your row with these single crochets, go ahead, chain 1 and turn your work around. Now moving on to row 2, into this first stitch, we're going to back bar single crochet into each stitch all the way down our row. Now once you have finished working these back bar single crochets into each stitch across your row, chain and turn your work around. And now the cuff is really simple. You want to repeat this row with our back bar single crochets until you have a total of 22 rows. So I am going to work up my 22 rows, and then I'm going to show you how to seam the cuff to our sleeve. So this is what my cuff is looking like after those 22 rows of these back bar single crochets. And I did cut and fasten off, making sure to leave a long tail for seaming. And to seam our cuff, it is pretty simple. I'm just going to flip it over horizontally, whip stitch all the way across your cuff. And then after you have that done, you want to grab your sleeve with the end that is pinched in where we did those decreases. And then you just want to whip stitch all the way around your sleeve as well. So I'm just going to do my cuff and then attach it to my sleeve. And then we're going to work on attaching this to our bodice as well. So I'm going to work this up and then I'll see you guys back soon. So once you have finished attaching your cuff, this is what my work is looking like so far. We're going to grab our bodice, which I have over here, and we're just going to place our sleeve right next to our armhole. And then we're simply going to whip stitch all the way around our sleeve to attach these two pieces. And then once we have our two pieces attached, you want to repeat this process on the opposite side as well. So making a second sleeve and cuff, and then doing the same thing on the opposite armhole. But I'm going to finish working both of my sleeves on both sides, and then I'm going to see you guys back, and we're going to get started on the turtleneck over here. So yeah, I will work that up and then I will see you guys back. So I have now finished up seaming both of my sleeves to my bodice, and now that I have both of my sleeves all complete, we're going to go ahead and move on to working the turtleneck over here. So let's go ahead and get started on that. So now moving on to our turtleneck portion, I'm going to first make a slip knot, and then from here make a chain of 33. So now that I have my chain of 33, beginning on row 1, starting into this second chain, we will single crochet into each chain all the way across. And then once you reach the end of this row, go ahead, chain 1 and turn your work around. And now beginning on row 2, Starting into this first stitch, we're simply going to back bar single crochet into each stitch across our row. And then once you reach the end of these back bar single crochets, as usual, just chain one and turn your work around. And now continuing our turtleneck portion, you want to repeat row 2, which is with those back bar single crochets, until you have a total of 70 rows. And then once you have 70 rows, just cut and fasten off. I'm going to work up my 70 rows, and then I will see you guys back once I am all done. So now this is what my work is looking like after those 70 rows with these back bar single crochets. And now I'm just going to fold this in half and grab my bodice. Now it is very simple to attach the turtleneck to our bodice. We're simply going to whip stitch all the way down here. Then you just want to place this on top of the bodice as you normally would, and then just whip stitch your way all the way around the edge to attach it to our base. This is pretty simple, and this is the last part to our project. So I will just quickly seam this all up, and then I will see you guys back, and then that'll kind of be the end. So I am back here with my turtleneck all seamed up around our base. And then once you have this, I'm just going to flip it over just like this. And that is basically the end of your project. The last thing you would need to do is just weave in all of your loose ends. But besides that, that is the end of the tutorial, and I hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please consider liking and subscribing to my channel. If you bought this pattern, it would be super helpful if you left a positive review. But yeah, that's all. Bye!